Hello, students. Thanks for watching. Today, we will continue to talk about writing research proposals, particularly looking at method, conclusion, and some other things that you could include into your proposal. The other things you could include or you should include are the expected outcomes. Sometimes we would call this the hypothesis, your expected problems, or the limitations of your study. Then conclusion. These are some of the elements for the method section. Obviously, depending on the nature of your research, you do not have to include all the elements. And then, of course, there might be other elements not included in this list that you could include in your method. Method section should be the easiest because by this stage, you should have a clear idea of what you want to do. In the method section, do not give instructions because it's not an instruction manual. Do not write your method in point form. Please write your method in paragraphs. You could write one paragraph or several paragraphs depending on how much you write. Often students ask me if they could use first person, such as I or we or our or us. The answer is yes, because this is your research. Therefore, if you write I or we, then you are talking specifically about yourself or your team of researchers. Of course, you could also avoid using first person by using the passive voice. This is a matter of personal references or sometimes a requirement by journals or teachers. For example, let's read this sentence and see if we could change this sentence by deleting I. I will conduct an experiment in cafeterias on campus. If we delete I, how can we change this sentence so that it is still grammatically correct? I want all the students to now stop the slide, use a couple of minutes, and try to rewrite this sentence. Students, I hope you have stopped the slide and now checking the answers. So one way to rewrite the sentence is, of course, using passive tense. So an experiment will be conducted. Okay? By doing so in passive tense, we take away the subject. Another way to rewrite the sentence is, of course, write it in the active voice tense. But we replace I or we with student researchers. Student researchers will conduct an experiment in 8 cafeterias on campus. This is an example of method. Often, the first sentence in the section or the first sentence of the paragraph is most difficult. So I always recommend my students to start their method section with the purpose. In this case, this research aims to analyze the food dishes in cafeterias. Okay? The reason we put the purpose here is because purpose is the most important piece of information in this research proposal. Okay. We would often repeat the most important information many times throughout this paper. So in introduction, in method, and then also again in conclusion. So after purpose, we have research design by using E-in experiments by 4 student researchers. By having purpose and research design first, we have now cleared the most 2 of the most important elements of method. After the purpose and research design, then we can include the procedures, a lot of details. We can talk about the research environment. We can talk about research ethics. We can talk about what kind of data we are going to collect. Ideally, when you write your method, you should include enough details so that if another researcher replicates your study, they will be able to retrieve the same result based on the details you have written in your method. But once again, due to the word limit of this report, you cannot include everything. Hypothesis is also a very important part of your research proposal. In a real research, researchers would probably write hypotheses after literature review because they should have a good idea of what results they would expect after reviewing other studies and literature. However, for the purpose of this report, because a lot of our students don't have a lot of knowledge in the field of the topic they are conducting, it's quite difficult for them to make an hypothesis after reviewing the literature. So for your report, I want you to write your hypothesis after the method section. For this example, I wrote food dishes from the main campus cafeterias would be more delicious than food dishes from other cafeterias from the other 2 campuses. And here is where I get the reason, because a good hypothesis would give a reason because you want to persuade your readers why you think results will happen based on your good reason. In a real research where you write your research hypothesis, ideally you would support your hypothesis with references and citations. For the purpose of your report, for our report, you do not need to add a citation for your hypothesis because it's quite difficult at this stage. Writing expected problems. What problems do you think would happen to your research? Ideally, researchers would write down what they think, what problems they think might occur, and then in the process of research, try to avoid those problems. However, the expected problems sometimes cannot be avoided. Therefore, in that case, that's okay. We would write them as weaknesses and limitations. So, expected problems, weaknesses, and limitations of your study can be quite similar. Finally, conclusion. Okay. Conclusion is very easy if your introduction is written properly, because conclusion is very similar to the introduction plus a little bit more. So in here, okay, we would write what we included in introduction, which is the purpose, the reason why you chose the topic, and very briefly mention the method. So we'll put those 3 elements into conclusion as well as some contributions of your study and final words. So this is the introduction. You can see purpose, we can see reason, we can see a brief method, plus contributions. I think this research will contribute to students' campus life and will help future freshman students to quickly adjust to their new lives. Okay, so this is my contribution. And then I can also add like a few comments at the end. Okay, I believe the quality of cafeteria food is important for Japanese universities. And then this is the end of my research proposal. But please do not forget citations and references. There are a lot of styles, referencing styles, depending on what journal or what your class teacher, they might ask different styles. I would prefer my student to use the APA style, the American Psychological Association referencing style. Okay. In APA, for the citations, you will write down the family name of the author plus year of publication. If you have 2 authors, you write family name of the first author plus sign, second name, name of the second, family name of the second author, comma, and then year of publication. Citation is what we call when we write inside the text in your, at the very, very back of the paper, okay, then the citation would then reflect to the list of references at the back of the paper. This is an example of a reference list. The author names are arranged in alphabetical order, so A, B, C, etc., etc. Sometimes or very often, students will use books in Japanese with Japanese titles. In that case, please write the book titles in Romanized letters. If you use information, if you refer to website, please write down name of the website and then also a link as well. So this is end of today's lecture notes. Thanks for listening, students.